Hello, I hope everybody's September is off to an excellent start. I wanted to share that this month on the Kindred Journey podcast, we're going to be talking about stories that are related to health and courage in those circumstances or seasons of hard, and how these women have overcome these seasons in their life it's all just such a beautiful experience that I'm excited to unfold with you. I have several interviews with these women, these courageous women, anywhere from a kidney transplant to having this radical shift in motherhood to open awareness to her self-care and being sober. There are so many wonderful stories that I'm going to share with you this month that I cannot wait, especially if you're in a season of hard or a season of a health, I don't want to say crisis, but just something that is hard with your health and you maybe don't know why or understand or questioning. And so I hope that these stories can enlighten your experience of where you're at or meet you where you're at, because I think everything that these women have shared with me is going to impact you in one way, shape, or form. This first episode that I'm sharing with you is my conversation with a woman named Aubri Gibb, and I met Aubrey this May at a podcasting summit that I have shared and talked about on previous episodes of this podcast, and I loved her energy. I felt like she was an old soul. I connected with her right off the bat when we started talking, and just hearing all of her little aha moments and all of the things that she had been receiving and breadcrumbs along the trail, I think was such a beautiful, beautiful thing to lighten in this story. She does talk about motherhood in the beginning and how she was science-based and went to faith-based, and how meditation and setting that time aside for herself has been truly impactful in her life. She said, she had a lot of the shoulds in her mind with her firstborn son. She's like, I should have all these toys and I should have all of the crib and checking off all the boxes with the shoulds. And I think that happens to a lot of us moms, especially first-time moms. Like you think you should have all of this figured out. And it's truly the biggest learning experience in this life, to date for me at least. She talks about how she wants to share her gifts with the world and to be ready to receive. Like I said, I can't wait for you to hear all the little breadcrumbs along her journey. And it hasn't even been a whole year. I think she started along this journey in October of last year. So coming up on the 1 year mark for her, I think actually 1 month. It's been 11 months to date for her. So she talks about becoming a conscious parent, and she had to become a conscious parent before she could become a conscious version of herself. And that's kind of what tapped her into this open flow of figuring out who she really was as a person. And I think that there is such an identity shift in motherhood. And that's what I've heard from a lot of, especially coming off of a month of parenting and highlighting parenting from so many amazing women that were on the show. And she talks about play and like how important we forget how to play, and it's a flow state of mind and where our creativity comes. And being a mom has really reminded her how to play again, and that we are the model for what it looks like for our kids. And she knew she didn't want to be the mom that she was being. And sobriety is part of her journey and her story, which I think is such a beautiful, beautiful part of her story. And I'm just excited to see where she's going. She lives on a farm in Indiana, and she wants to integrate play and maybe some teaching and workshops involved with the farm and having other kids in the local community come. And she's just such an amazing person. So I hope that you enjoy this episode with Aubri Gibb. And we're going to be talking about the importance of self-care. I know self-care is very hot topic right now, a hot phrase used, but I truly think the overall message of this conversation is You need to invest in yourself. You need to cultivate that relationship with yourself and that care and that nourishment and hydration and all the things in order to give to others, especially your children. You want to show up as the best version of yourself for your kids. Not all the time, but like coming from a place of intention versus a place of resentment or anger or exhaustion. We're definitely not showing up as moms in the best way that we can when we are coming up from a place of lack versus a place of abundance and giving and loving and receiving. And it's just more of a beautiful dynamic that way. So please welcome Aubrey to the podcast. And I hope you enjoy this show. And I hope you enjoy the month of September, where we're going to be talking all things health and courage in health. Welcome to the Kindred Journey podcast, the podcast where women share their experiences of stepping into courage when comfort is no longer an option. This is the podcast for connecting in community with women who have been shaped by the liberating to challenging seasons that life endures. I am your host, Leslie. I am a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. I too have experienced these seasons in life, and I want you to know that you are surrounded by a community of courageous, real women here for you. I can't wait to connect, so grab your favorite beverage and join me on this kindred journey. Aubrey, how are you?
I am so good, actually.
It's so good to see your face. I'm so happy that we're doing this after I've actually met you in person. So I'm just so
Should we talk about
excited.
that? How we even met? Because that's kind of
No,
cool.
yeah, we can totally talk about that. I think that's part of why we're here, right? We're
Right.
on this kindred journey together. So I since I know a little bit about you, if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing with the audience a little introduction, and then we can
Yeah,
get going.
absolutely. Okay, hi. My name's Aubri Gibb. Um, I live in Indiana in like a very small little town, literally population like 2,000 or something, on a small farm with my fiance and our 2-year-old son. I'm 25, almost 26. That's actually crazy for me to say. Who knew that at this age you would start being like, wait, how old am I again? It's like I'm still in my 20s.
I
But
think once you get to 21, it doesn't matter, right? It's like
exactly, you're like, okay, another year. And I feel like, yeah, I can't believe that because when I had my son, I was 22. And so it's really crazy to be about 26. And I'm like, where did that time go? Um,
right.
but yeah. So a little bit of background on me that might be pertinent for my like journey would be, so I grew up very poor, alcoholic dad who I'm not like, I don't talk to anymore, but best friends with my mom. She, and I are still best friends. And what's really funny, and I'll get into it as I talk more about kind of like my journey in the last like not even a year yet, and it's crazy. But I I grew up very like not religious at all. Like I have like I would into if you would have asked me this time last year even, I would have been completely atheist. So I'm very science minded. That's what I have my degree in. Um yeah, human life sciences and like chemistry and physics and like all that. I was such a like science person, and honestly I haven't even read the Bible and like things like that. And I'm just going through it, and then I decided to have a kid. And it was like a planned out decision. uh we were very like, I like tracked my ovulation. Like I was like, we're doing it right, we're choosing right now. I really wasn't prepared for, like, even though I chose it and I was so ready in my head, I just wasn't ready for the identity shift, I guess, that comes with motherhood. So, like, I being like a very science minded person, I'm like, I'm just gonna do my research about like, so like you start researching. And so actually what kind of started my current journey was actually right after I had my son. I started to listen to a ton of parenting podcasts, reading a ton of parenting books, because like even though, so was thankfully, like very grateful for this, able to stay home with him. And I'm like doing it. And like at first, my fiance was there with us and it was great. But I had this severe anxiety, first of all, about like everything, because as I started to dig into kind of, I don't know, I guess I had this I feel like almost like an existential like crisis about like, oh gosh, like I really am a mom now. And like, what kind of mom do I want to be? Like, how do I not mess my kid up? And where the anxiety came from, I realize now looking back, it was like, because I cared so much about not, quote unquote, like messing up my kid and like doing it right, I really fell into this dangerous, not healthy perfectionism. And so I'm like, if I can just do what all the research says, if I can just do everything right, then of course it'll be fine. And so I start going down this parenting rabbit hole because I'm such a researcher, science person. I'm like doing all that. And I was struggling with anxiety, and I definitely went into like the crunchy mom circle, where like everything's toxic, all natural alternatives, like all that stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's gonna hurt my kid and blah blah. Anyway, so I'm doing this and I'm, gentle parenting and all this stuff. And none of it almost, I don't know, it just felt off. Like I wasn't fully fulfilled, even though I felt like I should have been. And I couldn't figure out why. I was like, why am I not loving this like I should be? Like, what is missing? And also, it didn't, as much as I love the gentle parenting approach, um, again, in the beginning, I just think I was like taking everything so by the book. Like, okay, this is what they said I have to do. So this is how I have to talk to my kid. This is what I have to do for our routine. This is what, and so it just almost didn't feel like authentic, like building an authentic relationship with myself as a mother and then with my son even. And it really took a toll on my relationship with my partner too, just because I don't know, I feel like I was so, I don't know, like particular about everything. And so I'm like telling him, like, no, you can't say that. You can't do this. And so he almost couldn't be authentic either. And so it was like a weird time in our household. It was like about a year. And I went through all the parenting stuff and like kind of had a grasp on like my parenting views, I guess, and like approach, I thought. And basically, I don't know, if you read all the parenting books and listen to all the podcasts and all the experts, what you kind of end up, they all kind of tell you, okay, but really, the kids learn best through modeling. And so basically, you have to fix yourself and start reparenting yourself. So, of course, you like want to just be able to just do the right thing as a parent. But I soon realized, I can't. Why do I keep accidentally yelling at him, even though I want to be a gentle parent and I know I shouldn't? And, all that starts coming up and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then I was like, oh no, I got to work on some stuff myself. So I kind of naturally shifted from like parenting books and parenting podcasts to like personal development. And so one of the most impactful, like probably the first, like I started reading some, yada, yada, but like one of the most impactful would be like Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Because that was the first actual time I'd heard like, so she uses the term inner knowing for like your intuition and, talks about meditation. And I'm like, oh, okay, what is this? And she also, one thing that really stuck with me, and I know your audience is largely parents, so this might help them too. So one of the things that stuck out to me the most that I still remember from that book is she says, mothers think that we tend to think that in order to be a good mom, we should be a martyr. So we should be selfless and we should put our kids' needs and everyone else's needs in front of us. And that's how you are a good mom. And she says, she's like, absolutely not. She's like, that it is not a gift to your child to dull your own life, to live a less fulfilling life, to put yourself on the back burner and not be truly happy and truly alive. That's actually terrible. Like what, when your kid grows up, you're like, yeah, I did have a lot of aspirations and dreams, but I wanted to be a good mom. So now I'm bitter, or, kind of is like, yeah. And so that kind of got me, I'm like, okay, so because I definitely was falling into that, like putting every single one of my needs last. was terrible at setting boundaries. So I started to do some of that work, and I was just going through all these books. I read like Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, kind of got into her work and like all stuff. And I was kind of collecting these pieces, and I felt like I was getting, a little bit better about like regulating myself and kind of understanding, you know, what things I need to do to like actually be happy and fulfilled fully. Because I wasn't like unhappy. Like it definitely wasn't postpartum depression. It was largely anxiety. And it was like, just kind of like I was missing something. I was like, what is not right about this? Like, why? I should be absolutely loving just staying home with my kid and raising him the way I want. Like I love, all the intentional parenting and all that. And for some reason it just wasn't enough. And I was still like resentful and bitter and not, my best self. And so through that, on my personal development, I just kept reading these books, right? And listening mostly to the audiobooks because I was sitting on the couch nursing my son. And I accidentally happened upon, it was just recommended to me on my Indiana digital library app, Kathy Heller's book, her first one, the Don't Keep Your Day Job. And at this point, my son was almost 2, and we had pivoted in our, like my husband or fiance had pivoted in our like small farm business because once you have a kid, it's just, I don't know, everything changes. I don't know. And so financially, it was time for me to start contributing a little bit more. And the idea of leaving my kid and not being with him and putting him in a daycare or anything was like off the table for me. Like I was like, I can't. Because even, I mean, for the first like year, I couldn't even ask for help enough or like get over myself enough, I guess. I don't know, to even have a babysitter, And so I definitely wasn't gonna just put him in daycare. And I was looking for, like, the reason I listened to Don't Keep Your Day Job is I was honestly just looking for ideas for how to make some money really fast, like from home. And boy, was there a lot more in that book than what I was expecting. I had never heard of Kathy Heller. But the big piece that hit home was kind of like the idea that everyone should be able to make money and live an amazing life doing what they love and sharing their gifts. And the meditation piece. So like I said, I was not religious at all. No spiritual practice, no, I honestly wouldn't have even said I believe in like a higher power. I believed in nothing. I had no belief system essentially. And I don't know how, but anyway, so I read her book and it was great. But then I started listening to her podcast. And on one of the podcast episodes that I listened to, it started with a meditation. And that I listened to it. And it was like, honestly, it was like before bed. I was like having trouble falling asleep. So I thought, well, I'll listen to a meditation and it'll help me fall asleep. And it did not at all, but it completely, I feel like, changed everything after that. Completely changed me with one meditation. So I listened to it and then I like ran, and I had to, it was like literally like midnight or something, like very late. I wrote like 15 pages in my journal, just flow state, just because through this meditation, it was my first experience of actually connecting with source or your inner knowing or whatever everyone else is talking about. I was like, oh, this is it. And it connected so many dots for me. And it actually, like, I would credit her with, like, she single-handedly, that moment has now made me into a very spiritual person, very connected person. And it has changed literally everything for me. And so what's crazy is I date my journal entries, right? So this was actually October 3rd of last year when I listened to that. So it has not even been a year yet. And I wrote all this stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And in the very end of it, I write, my next steps. Like, what does this make me want to do? Like, what actions do I take now? Because there was a big shift there. And it's so crazy because I wrote, start meditating daily. And I have every single day since then because of the profound experience that I had. Like, it wasn't just like okay, yeah, I kind of felt calm. It was like, complete different state. And then it's crazy because when I wrote somehow, I don't know how at this point, I'm like, I need to talk to Kathy Heller or meet her or something, right? And like, just for some reason, I just feel like, and so fast forward to literally not even a month later, I'm pretty sure it was still in October. And she did a like launch, like free workshop thing where it's a few days. And on the very first day of this free workshop, I won a Mac desktop computer, the big, like a huge prize, right? Like $2,000 computer. And I literally couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my God, this can't be real. Like, cause this lady changed my life like a few weeks ago, literally changed it fundamentally, my whole like belief system kind of. And then, so I asked, but I'm like, okay, I don't really need a computer. And I knew that I really wanted to do whatever the program was. It was like made to do this at the time that she was kind of launching. And I was like, there's no freaking way I would ever give myself permission. And there's no way we could afford it. And so I go ahead and I message like Kathy's team and I'm like, actually, could I trade that computer for a spot in your program? And they said yes. So, and my fiance thought I was insane because he's like, you just traded a 3,000, like an almost $3,000 computer for what now? Like, he's like, okay, you think that like, is this some scam? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it, but trust me, like, I do need to keep doing this. I think that's why the universe made me win in the first place. I just felt like it was I've been getting these little signs. And so fast forward, it's like 3 months later when the like program actually starts and I'm in it and I love it and I do it all and I'm learning so much and I have all these ideas. And then at the end of that program, she did another giveaway, right? And she was giving away tickets and like a ticket to her podcasting summit. And it was like Beats headphones and like $250 towards your plane. Right. And I literally, I did enter because it was just like a comment, like put a comment for what you would do or why it should, why you want to win this. And I almost didn't comment because, well, one, I'd already won one really big prize for like a couple months before that from the same people, and also I don't have a podcast. And at this point, it really wasn't even on my radar, but I just put it out there. I was like, okay. And I won again. And I remember I was just sitting on the couch and I was like, are you serious? Like, it just felt like confirmations, like the winning. It wasn't even like, it wasn't about the prize or anything for me. It's just the fact I felt like it was signs that like, yes, this is the journey you need to be on, like keep going. Because I was seeing so much growth in myself. So I go to the podcasting summit. And it was really hard to make that happen. Like it was the first time I had to leave my son. I I did not really have money to go, had to make all that work. I was a teacher last year. That's what I ended up doing, a part-time middle school science teacher. And I don't even have my teaching degree, but I do have a science degree. And so it's a very weird kind of school that I worked at, like a very alternative. And I remember going into my interview, I was so nervous and I was like, I'm not actually a teacher, but I think I can do this. And I think that was a little bit of like my work too, is like proving that I can do it, even if like, and anyway, I go and I have the most amazing, profound experience. But what's funny is like on my way, so I buy my ticket and I bought it really last minute, my plane ticket. I bought my ticket there. I bought first because I was like, okay, I'm going to force myself to go and commit. And then so I bought two one ways. And so I bought my first ticket and I was like, I'm just going to commit and do it and I'll figure out the rest. And then like a week before the summit, then I finally buy my return ticket. And what's so funny is actually I get on the plane and I go and like honestly the whole plane ride I'm like listening, I'm like tuning in. I'm like, okay, you're going, so you gotta just go in with a good mindset and not, and just let whatever you need to happen. Because at this point I'm like very spiritual and I'm like, okay, like, you get what you are. So you gotta just go in and be open and loving and be ready to receive. And so it's so funny because we land and I get off the plane and I realized that I accidentally flew to Las Vegas instead of Los Angeles. And I didn't notice. No, I didn't even notice until like I get off the plane and the first red flag is I'm like, that's weird that they would have so many casinos in Los Angeles. Um, Weird airport vibe. And then I'm still like not fully convinced because I think I just didn't want to believe it. I was like, no way. No, I didn't do that. And literally, yeah. So I'm like, I like sit down and I eat in the airport. Like I was supposed to ride share with another girl who was in the group. And I did not fully believe that I had made this mistake. Like I was like in denial until I went on my phone. I was trying to get an Uber to my hotel. And I was like, why would an Uber be $400 to go? You know, it was supposed to be like a 30-minute drive to my hotel. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I'm like laughing and crying at myself. I cannot believe I did this. So, but I'm still like determined. I'm like, okay. Like I like call my mom, who is like my best friend. So I'm like, you're never gonna guess what I did. And she honestly helped me so much because I'm like crying and I'm pretty upset, but like trying to be positive. And she just cracks up. And it just made it so much more like lighthearted. And she's like, that is such a good story. That is so funny. It was probably supposed to happen. And so I'm just like, okay, you're right. And I like shake it off. And I take an Uber from the airport to like the bus station. And I have to get a bus ticket. And I take a bus from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. It was like a 6-hour bus ride through like the desert. It was ridiculous. And so I get there super late. I like only flew in one day before. So I was like excited to have like this time in LA and like meet some of the people. Nope, I got there and I'm like room sharing with 4 other people who are complete strangers. And they were
Oh my
already like,
gosh.
yeah, so 2 of them were already asleep. And then Magda hadn't got there yet. So the fourth wasn't there. And I get there and they're like in bed asleep. And I have to like walk into this hotel room. Haven't met these people. Like just climb into bed with a stranger. And so anyway, but I'm still, I'm actually surprising myself at this point because I'm not like having a complete meltdown. And I'm just like going with it and
Good
actually
for
feeling,
you.
yeah, I don't know. So I was just like, honestly, it is funny and it's fine. And so
And it all worked out.
it did. And then I ended up I met Magda, who was my fourth or like the fourth person in our room. On the second day, like she hadn't stayed the night before, but she stayed the first day of the conference and the next. And she is literally like, I don't know, it's like the universe must have brought us together because she's from Poland, right? And she
Which
also
is
won her.
amazing.
I know. And she won her ticket too. And she won it not even from Kathy, but from another one of the speakers. And she only won it like 5 days before or something ridiculous. And it was her first time flying to America and she still went. So her journey was kind of crazy too. So we already could bond over that. And then we start talking, the night after the first day of the conference. And as we start talking, I realize she is literally doing like pretty much the same exact line of work, like live very, very similar thread as me in Poland. And it was just absolutely insane. And all of it, just the synchronicity of every single thing that happened was just ridiculous. And so,
You guys are soul
yeah,
sisters.
literally soul sisters. And it was, yeah. So it's been such a whirlwind. Um, the last like not even a
Can
year.
we pause there? I mean, you're on a roll, so I'm like, I have
No,
so much to
yes.
interject with and say, but I don't
Mhm.
want to obviously cut you off because this is your time. First, I like to say this before we get going, but this is a safe space for you to share your story. So everything that you do say here is honored and respected. And that's, I think, part of what that makes this podcast so special is that, it takes vulnerability and courage to show up and share your story. So I want you to feel safe in sharing what you want to share. So not everybody agrees. That's the beautiful part of this world. So like I want to honor and hold space for everybody here to share their story and what makes them, authentically themselves. So I I remember meeting you at the podcasting summit, and I totally connected with you right away with you are an old soul. I'm like, when you're like, oh, how do I, you forget the years. I'm like, I'm going to be 35, I think, later this year. I think I forget too,
I
especially
know.
once you have kids. It's like, well, it's their birthday now, or like, where's this yours?
You start to
But,
keep track of how old you are by subtracting how old your kids are. You're like, okay, I had
exactly.
when I was this old.
Exactly. And I just remember you have such an old soul, Aubrey, and I'm like literally beaming from ear to ear like right now with everything that you're saying and shaking my head even though I've been muted because I do have my son with me today because that's just part of life. And yeah, I just think that your story and your journey, and I know we'll continue to go forward with our conversation, but just I think something that you did share about like, oh, I'm not going to enter this giveaway because I already won something really great and grand. Like sometimes we limit ourselves to receiving because we feel like either we're not worthy or we didn't deserve it, or like you said, you had a lot of perfectionist mentality behind a lot of things. And so I think like sometimes almost like eliminating what, like in my preference, God decides
Yeah,
what we're gonna receive or not receive. Like we're almost making up our mind for him, or like deciding for him, or spirit, or universe, whatever applies to whoever is what they believe in. But yeah, I think it was just so fascinating that you still put in and look like, and your divine timing of meeting Magda and just connecting with her and connecting with so many women that you did connect with at the summit was such a beautiful experience. And I was so glad to be one of them. And I heard your story and I was like, oh my gosh, like just like you said, divine synchronicity between you guys being roommates and like what are the chances? Like Poland 5 days earlier than the conference. Like that's.
ridiculous.
So anyways, I just like, and I can appreciate you and your honesty as far as like I feel like you talked about an identity shift in motherhood, and sometimes moms lose a sense of self or a sense of their identity in motherhood. Um, but you kind of leaned into that piece, you really were like, I feel like it was divine timing that you came across Kathy's podcast or, the book that you listened to and kind of on your self-discovery journey there. I think I like something that you said was that I wasn't feeling fulfilled at what I thought I should be doing, and I think in motherhood, there's, like you said, you were trying to read all the books and do all the things. And I have a really big talker today. At least he's not screaming. But I think it's hard. We get in our own heads with motherhood. And I think and yeah, you're responsible for more than just yourself, right? Like you have another human being that you have to take care of, or multiple. And it there's a lot of weight, and I think, I talked to you about my story a little bit being there. I had this one with me at that summit, and that was a choice that I felt guilty for making a little bit with like leaving my 2-year-old with my parents. And I was like, but I'm doing this for me. Like, he's fine and safe. He's fine and safe. Why am I like, there's nothing like I need to go chase my dreams. So, and do what lights me up still, especially in this season of motherhood, because I feel like, I don't know, I think it was you the mortar type motherhood, and yeah. And, so anyways, those are a few things I kind of wanted to touch on with you and just, yeah, I think, like you said, limiting yourself to receive because you already had won something. I feel like we do that in motherhood. Like we limit ourselves to receive the goodness of this season because we use it as almost like, I don't want to say a protective mechanism, but just like, it's not. It's like bring them along for the ride. And like you said, our kids are going to learn from us. So to lead by example is the most important impact that we can leave on our kids. And I even have listened to podcasts about resting. Like if your kids don't see you resting, there's going to be so much associated with like guilt through rest, or like resting as a reward.
Never
And
stop.
I've been resting so much in this season of single parenting currently, and I have a 5-month-old, and so
Yeah.
it's important. So anyways, those are a few things I kind of wanted to touch on that you've already shared.
No, yeah. So I would love to dive into the whole finding your like motherhood identity piece. and the guilt and all of that that comes with it, just motherhood in general. Okay, so I think it it's so hard. So I wasn't ready. I would like, I guess, I don't know, you prepare to have a kid and you assume you're still gonna just be the same, but just have a kid now. And at least for me, especially I think if you fall in the realm of like conscious parenting, where you are like being very intentional about, like for me, it was like I started to just be like asking this question to myself over and over again, and I still do. So the question I still go back to like every time to find my kind of alignment here is like, what kind of mom do I want to be? Because at this point now, I just am a mom, so I can't separate. It's not just what kind of person do I want to be, which would be, if you don't have kids, you could ask that. Uh, but no, for me, it's like, what kind of mom do I want to be? What kind of childhood do I want my son to have, or my kid? If I have more, but currently just my son. Like, what do I want for him? And that was like where I kind of started, was like in my conscious parenting journey, because I kind of became a conscious parent before I feel like I became a conscious person. If that makes sense. And so
Yeah,
like
it
I really
does.
got into, yeah, learning about, which is actually why I want to become a teacher. So I got really into like learning about how kids learn best. Like I had taken classes in college on like child development. And I have like degrees in psychology and neuroscience, like in chemistry, like those are my minors. And so I took a lot of classes and I like had a good foundation of like kind of at first, like what you think you want for your kid. And then it kind of led me to realize what for me at least, what I really want for him is for him to be happy and fulfilled and like a good person, and
Hmm.
whatever that looks like for him. And so I really became like very invested. I learned so much about the education system and kind of some faults, like where the faults lie there. Um, I'm definitely like a more of like a pro, like a homeschooling, unschooling mom now, because, and this is actually, so anyway, I realized that I want him to be happy and fulfilled and to be fully himself. So I wanted him to find his gifts and really explore his interests and develop those things as much as possible. And what keeps coming up in the research about how kids learn best and things, like if you dive into it, play. Like I'm sure you've heard of like play-based learning and how all the benefits. And what's crazy is like actually that was where my mind was at the point when I listened to Kathy's meditation and had that shift. And so I realized, so children, we know that they learn best in a state of play. And when you're in a state of play, that is the flow state. And so actually we all learn best in a state of play. We just forget how to play. And we start to, that's why, I mean, adults are not that, most adults, like, you're not having that much fun. You're like, well, we just have to do this. We have to do that. And, we almost forget to model what play looks like for our kids, I guess. Um, and so for me, I don't know, I'm still constantly redefining what kind of mother I want to be, but it definitely shifted from hit focus on him having the best time and doing the best for him and like everything I have like thought I had to do, to showing him that essentially for me now, I've kind of redefined for myself being a good mom, being the kind of mom I want to be, is the kind of mom that shows him what it means to choose yourself, that shows him, basically all the spiritual and personal development work that I'm doing now. This is like very early on, I told my fiance, I was like, I don't want him to have to do this, because I want him to grow up knowing that he is whole and that he is worthy, and that we can do hard things, and that we can be brave, and that, that security of like, in that authenticity, like within himself, and that groundedness. And so I realized I needed to find that for myself. And so over the last like year, or so I've done a few things to step outside of my box and kind of show him that, and kind of still trying to figure out even what exactly, like I just take a little tiny, whatever feels like the next easiest right step based on like my intuition and my interest and things like that. And so I, I've hosted a couple workshops, like I think 5 workshops now at our farm, like in person workshops in my small community, putting myself out there. So I did some fire cider workshops where people could come and make their own. Um, and then I did actually like I taught, and this was so out of after I did the fire cider workshop, uh, one of the girls who had come, of course, then tells some other girl about it and just recommends it as like, oh, maybe, you could host some workshops there. Like you could reach out to her. So she did. And of course, I feel like this is a synchronicity too, like giving me my next step. And she happened to be like in the personal development, like the coaching space. And she's local. And so when I met with her, and she's like just checking out, like we have like a commercial building on our farm. And so that's where I had hosted my workshop, and that she was interested in using the space because she does, some coaching workshops. And so I'm talking to her, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like I've really been in this space, like, in that work lately too. And for no reason, I'm like, I am not very recent, and she's like, well, would you want to do the workshop with me? And I just, like, at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm being guided, and I have to just say yes when opportunities present themselves, because there is just no reason for the things that have been happening to me. It was ridiculous, like one thing after another, right? And so I'm like, well, yeah, like sure. And so I am really close with her now. It was I did a I did a meditation, I did breath work, and I am not like a pro, like I was still relatively new, but I had been doing it myself and healing so much that I was like, yeah, okay, I think I can teach this, like at least a snippet of it, and share and use it. And so I really stepped out of my comfort zone there. And then it was like she did some coaching of her coaching stuff, and then we had them actually create their own like junk journals. So it was like a craft at the end. It was like creative and stuff. It was really fun. And we did it once for like adults and like paid. And then we actually donated our time and taught the same workshop to Girls Inc. I don't know if you have that where you are. Um, it's
I
like
don't think so.
it's similar to the Boys and Girls Club. It's like a
Okay.
non-for-profit, but it's for only like for young girls. And so we did it, and it
That's
was,
amazing.
yeah, and all of that, I could not have seen coming, and it was just me. All it required was me saying yes to whatever opportunities presented themselves. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I did that, and I was a middle school science teacher along the way. It was part-time, so like my mom could watch my son. And I just kept going back this whole time. I'm just like, I just started to really focus on alignment and intuition and just being open to receive, kind of like what you were saying, is like to step out of that martyr role. I think you really have to, first of all, build your own like worth, right? Your concept of like self-worth, and like knowing that you are whole and that you are worthy, and just in general expanding your capacity to actually receive instead of just being constantly giving, giving, giving. And so I don't know, for me it's like, yeah, now being a good mom is showing him, well, it's just, I don't know, it's like, yeah, choose yourself first and love everyone, kind of, is like love yourself so that you can love others, kind of, if that makes sense. It's still a
Yeah,
work in
you can't give from an empty cup, right? Like if there's nothing left to give, then if your tank's empty, then you can't give anything. So I can totally understand. And wow, I didn't know that part of everything that's been happening since I've connected with you. But I think that's, like you said, I think what was interesting is that we forget what it's like to model play for kids, especially as adults. We live in such a doing, gotta achieve, achieve, achieve. And I think kids really slow. I think that's the shift in the dynamic that I've struggled with is I was good at my job and I still am good at my job, but I'm actually an agriculture appraiser for my 9 to 5. And so I appraise farms and ranches and like I loved it. And now that I'm a mom, like I have another role to balance and like it's just different, right? And so I think, but going from that productive do hustle mode, like burnout, to this more let's slow down. Especially when I was on maternity leave, I had the opportunity to really like slow down and be present and put the phone away, and like it, like who matters is right in front of me. And for them, and like you talk about the lead by example, we have this box, it's called RO, and it's amazing. I'm not endorsed by them, or I wish I was, maybe one day, but like ARO, and it's like you plug your phone in for intentional time with your family. And it's so important for you to lead by example, because my husband and I make the conscious choice of putting our phones away the second we walk through the door, so we can, like, my toddler's in there making, yes, he's making a mess, but he's at least wanting to be with me in the kitchen versus in front of a screen watching God knows what. And that's just my personal opinion. So I just think it's so important to create and cultivate those relationships with our kids early on, and leading by example and showing them what's important and what matters. And I mean, if screen time is what matters and that's your value of your family home, then fantastic. Great. Do what works for your family. I mean, that's what I'm not saying or shaming or anything. I'm just saying what works for us is like that quality, intentional time, especially at the end of the day when, working a 9 to 5, or, you want to have that intentional time. So, and I think what you're doing, donating your time to young girls, because I think in this day and age where phone usage and social media and all the things with teenagers, it's crucial. Like, it's so to instill that confidence in themselves, and like you said, to be in that alignment and knowing where they can operate from that capacity, because then you're able to receive, you're able to accept all of the gifts that you've been given in less than a year. I mean, amazing gifts, amazing opportunities. I think it's such a beautiful statement, and part of your enriched statement, I would say, is as you unfold in this journey of motherhood and whatever path you're headed down as far as like an entrepreneur goes, I think is such a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and like I stumbled across Kathy's podcast, and that's how I've connected into her realm or her world. But like she's amazing at lifting others up, and like she talks about taking the how out of it. Like, could you have ever howed your way, like, as much of a
Oh my
science-based
God.
person you are, like, could you ever calculate it with a formula, like everything that's happened to you in the last 10 months?
No, when I say a completely different person, I mean like fundamentally completely different. Um, like I said, like I had no faith, no spiritual practice, no nothing. And I think that was part of what was so hard for me when things got hard in motherhood is I didn't have a practice or a belief system to fall back on to be like, hey, it's okay, it'll all work out when things got hard. And so I just, and honestly, the meditation that it was like, it was only like 8 minutes long. It felt like half an hour. I don't know, but it was about getting stepping out of the lack and like limitation and lack mindset and stepping into abundance, and remembering that your wholeness is already like you're already whole. There's nothing you need outside of you. Everything like everything you actually need is already there. um and yeah, so for me it was like I don't know, I think it gave me that change, that switch in belief system gave me so much like power, I guess, back. um because I started to realize, like, honestly, and I think maybe a lot of moms fall into this, for me being a good mom was my excuse for not taking action and actually investing in myself. And so it was my like, I don't know, I even the fact that I like hosted these workshops, it like required me, I had to start, in order to start being myself and finding myself and doing this work and getting to where I'm way more fulfilled, way happier, and a way better of a mom, by the way, because I'm so much more alive, right? Like I am not all burnt out and just like hyper fixated on him. I'm like living and happy and doing all these things. And you can feel a difference when someone is in a state, like has that play and that light, that fire under them, like where it's like they're moving towards something, they're excited. Um, but I had to start getting babysitters, right? Like I had to start having other people watch my kid and giving myself permission and stop feeling guilty about it. And it's been so, I mean, it's just so hard, I think. And I think I was using that as a reason I couldn't do anything. Like I'd be like, well, it's just I can't start a business. It's just I can't work with and still be like home with him and like do a good job with all that and keep up with the house. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
almost like, oh well, it's not fair to him if I'm distracted.
You're keeping yourself in your old
I,
comfort zone by.
I would just stay in the comfort zone of like, oh no, yeah, I really wanted to, you know, do that workshop. And I had been talking about doing a fire starter workshop for like years, right? Or like, you know, since he was born, like before he was born, I probably like mentioned it. And it's just anytime I'd go to work on it, I'd be like, oh well, and I just put myself constantly on the back burner without even really even realizing it because I was
Mm-hmm.
always putting his needs and his wants and everything first. And so it became my excuse, like, oh well, I can't do literally anything for myself because that would make me not as good of a mom. And that's just so far from the truth. And I love what you said about like showing them the play. And then also for me, and like you might relate to this. So I'm really trying right now to work on lessening the gap between like, you know, you probably have like, you know, your work life and then like your real life. And then you're like kind of have like your motherhood. It's like almost all like compartmentalized. And so I'm really working on like how to fully integrate my son into just our daily living because why shouldn't he just be able to do what we're doing? Like, because we live on a farm. So a lot of what I'm doing, I mean, he gardens with us, we compost, he does chores and stuff with me. But like, I don't know, I used to always be like, feel guilty as we were doing those things, even though they're really good things for kids to do. This is just like silly now when I say it, but I'm
Right.
like,
No, I
because I'm
can
like,
relate. I
oh, he's
understand.
playing, or how can I expect him to do this with me all day? Like that's selfish. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, it's not. It's like, I don't know, we gotta just let them be a part of our lives fully and be like, well, this is what we do. I want him, like now I'm like, I want him to fully know me. You know, mom cared about this stuff. Mom was really good at this. It's actually so cute. So he'll like pretend to put on my headphones and he's 2, right? And he goes, oh, I can't talk right now. I'm listening to a meditation. To find my like I we say like to find your peace, you know, like when you're feeling overstimulated, like I will literally now, and it's been so profound for me and my motherhood because I don't want to yell. I don't want to get all worked up and triggered. So when I feel it, or if we're having a rough day, I will literally hit the pause button. I'll be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna sit on the couch. I'm gonna put in my headphones and I'm gonna do a meditation. So he knows. And I say, you know, mommy just needs to find her peace for a second. And so I realized like that's the things I want to pass on anyway, because I want him to know that when you're feeling dysregulated, go and find your peace and then come back. And yeah, it's just now just trying to kind of almost instill the wisdom. I feel like I've gained a lot of wisdom. Like how you said, I'm like an old soul. I've been hearing that lately, and I'm like, yeah, I do. I resonate with it because I so love all of the wisdom and the spiritual development now. And maybe it's because I'm so new to it and I wasn't exposed to it at all. And I'm like, this is crazy. People knew about this and no one tried harder to teach me.
I can relate to that. And I think it's until you're ready to receive it. Like truly, I think it's we go through life sometimes with a little bit of a blinder on or just not paying attention, or we're honestly too focused about ourselves. Like, I don't know, like what's everybody gonna think about me? Or what am I like the perfectionist kind of like you were talking about, like you're in your own head a little bit. Like I truly think, your spirituality has a key role in releasing what's not your, like it's truly not in your control. And I think also I love what you're talking about. Like they just want to be with us. They truly do. They only, like, I feel the same way. Like with my son, my older son, I can relate on so many of the things that you shared. But yeah, I think it's just hard when we think it should be a certain way, but all they want to do is do the dishes or cook food or be in the garden, or, they just want to be with us. They want to emulate us. So like you said, I think that's like, you want to be the mom that your son, you're setting a good example for your son. So I think that is so important. And also just kind of something else that you shared as far as like your workshops go, like that lights you up, and that's going to be able to exuberate that, exude that to your son, and to be a better mom. And yeah, it's not selfish, right? It's just part of your stewardship to being a mom. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think all this is so wonderful, and I can't wait to see where you go and where you're headed, and with, whether it's with the farm or the workshops or integrating a little bit of both, or I'm just super excited to see where this journey's going to take you, because I just would love to hear, maybe if you could wrap up with, what would you share looking back, hindsight 2020, not even a year ago, about 10 months, 11 months ago, what would you have told your old self, knowing what you know now?
I guess my biggest kind of takeaway, or kind of, yeah, what I would tell myself would be that children are born, I think, in a state of abundance. They already have that abundance mindset. They don't see any limitation. They don't see any lack. And that was one of the big kind of takeaways I kind of have got. And so for me now, I would just tell my old self, who was so worried about what products I use, what toys I bought, how present I, like every single little thing, I would just tell myself that, look, the best thing that you can do for him is to keep that alive. Because I think what happens is we forget that really what matters and what we all want is to feel really alive, really embodied, really like lit up and excited and playful and limitless and creative. And none of that can happen in a state of lack, or when we're too worried or too anxious, or with all the like shoulds and coulds and all of that. And so I don't know, I guess for old me, I would just remind myself that, like, I don't know, it's like they say, like, if the mom's happy and fulfilled, like that's enough. It is enough, no matter where you are at in your motherhood journey. And that there's gonna continue to be mom guilt. And I think that is something we need to just work on as like a collective in the motherhood circle, because guilt is one of the worst emotions, I think, to feel. And that was one of the hardest parts of the motherhood transition for me, is the guilt over just like caring for yourself. And so, yeah, just reminding myself that that's what I'm supposed to do, is to show him that you should always take care of yourself. You should always be looking, always come back to yourself, no matter what, every single day. If you're feeling off, go meditate, go find yourself, go outside. And just don't take it so seriously. Like, start playing. I'm so much better too at playing with him now, because I'm not like thinking in the back of my head about my to-do list. And so we have a lot of fun. Like, I'm like, Legos, Magneto. Yeah. Like, I can get into it and allow myself to actually play with him instead of just facilitating play for him, which I think is a way better dynamic. But yeah, I don't think it will ever end. I think I'm going to be constantly, I think all of us moms, we are in so many boxes in society, right? Like, you're either like a working mom or a stay-at-home mom, and either box you're in, right? The working moms, I feel like as a working mom, you deal with like, oh, you're not with your kids enough. You have that guilt, or you're tired when you get home and you have that guilt, or your house is kind of messy because you're trying to do both and you have that guilt. But then like you get your stay-at-home moms and it's like, oh, well, all she has is being a mom. And like, so you still like, there's no winning. And I think those are just like, that's boxes from society. And really there's so much in between. Like, you can be like a half working mom. Like, there's so many in between. I think we all compare and compartmentalize and put ourselves in these boxes instead of just like, I think everyone, hopefully all your listeners, if you are a mom, I would challenge you to just start, instead of like worrying about what you're doing and feeling the guilt and the shame, just start asking yourself. And maybe I incorporate it into my meditation practice in the morning, is I'm just like, okay, what kind of mom are we trying to be? Like, what values are you trying to teach? Like, I am so absolutely thrilled that my 2-year-old knows about meditation and composting. Like we cut a carrot and he's like, oh, this part goes back to earth. And I'm like, that, I feel so good about that. I'm like, I'm doing something right here. So really celebrate, when you notice like you've passed on something that you care about passing on, and then just keep redefining, I guess, what it means to you. What kind of mom do you want to be? Because really that's just asking, what kind of person do you want to be? Who do you want your kid to remember you as? Like, and I think it will change constantly. Because right now I'm in a phase where I'm actually, after this year of work and like kind of trialing different things, I'm really honing in on the business I want to create. And it's actually like not at all what I would have expected, but it just, when you're getting that going, it just takes a lot of time. And I've had and a lot of energy, and I have to be distracted and not be present, be on my computer because I'm making logos and designing a website. And I kept having this guilt come up every time. And I would just be like, oh, never mind, I just won't, because it's too hard when with the kid and blah, blah. And yeah, so for now, being a good mom for me right now is like showing him that we can do hard things. Like, yes, it's hard when mom is distracted, but you can do hard things and it's okay. And I'm doing a hard thing too. Like, we're doing it together. It's okay. And so yeah, just constantly redefining what it means to you, because I just didn't give myself any grace. And I was going off of basically what I thought like the experts, which like, who is even an expert in parenting? There is no expert. But I was like,
Nobody.
yeah, exactly. Like, I was trying to go off what that version, whatever I thought of a good mom looked like. Like, oh, good moms do this and have a routine and wake up at the same time every day and have a great breakfast. And like, and if it doesn't feel authentic, then I think that's wrong. Like, because for me, I want my kid to know me all the way and go to really feel like he knew his mom and not just like someone trying to be the best mom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, not being their authentic selves. And I think it looks different for everybody. I think, you're going to be the best mom for your son and I'm going to be the best mom for my boys. And like, it's going to look different, like you said, but I think that's where kind of social media, it used to be keeping up with the Joneses down the street, and now it's keep up with the Joneses all across the world, because it's like, look at this reel and look at that reel. And, and then none of us have it figured out. None of us do, and so I just find it so interesting. Like, just thank you for sharing and taking the time to share your journey. And I love how you're tuning into play and you're tuning into and I think kids truly remind us what it's like to be a kid and full of joy. And like you said, children are born with abundance and they're just so innocent and like, and just the innocence of a child, and like truly like they're pure good, like kids are just, anyways, until they get older. No, I'm just kidding. But,
Well, you're like, gosh, yeah, now like one of my biggest goals is like, try and just keep that, like, try and
right.
not dim this light. Like,
Well,
because
and the older they get, like our job is to raise them to be, like you said, you want him to be happy, you want him to be kind, you want him to be, it's like that's our job and our role as parents is like to raise these humans, to put them out into the world, into the real ugly world, unfortunately. Like there's a lot of good out there, but there's also a lot of bad, and for them to know to make the conscious choice or the right decision for them and like, oh, this is not a good choice or this is a bad choice, and so that's our role. That's what we're doing. And I think leading by example, like not a do as I say, or what is it? Do as I say, not as I do kind of like, that's not the way to parent, like in my opinion, like, because who's going to listen to that? Like, well, you
they've
do.
done.
Yeah, you're on your phone all the time, but you're telling me to get off my phone, and it's like, but how, like, you're sitting there scrolling Facebook, not even paying attention to what I'm trying to tell you or connect with you on. It's like, how do you expect your kids to reciprocate that, So,
Interested. I want to ask your opinion on that really quick because I
yeah.
know it's done, but okay, so the phone thing, I agree. And I'm the same, like very much did not part of every time I'm like, what kind of mom do I want to be? I'm like, not on my phone. I
Mhm.
don't want to be the mom who is always on her phone. I don't want to be the mom who wasn't present. But do you have a hard time? So me and my fiance actually just talked about this. If we're with him, we need to be present. Like I don't want him
Mm,
to think that's how we spend time together, is basically was my reasoning. But he brought up this point, and it's so true. And I have felt kind of stifled by this too, is like our work is on our phones a lot of time now, or on our computer. And so we could be doing research or like, reading or getting ideas. And so I think that how do you kind of maybe balance that?
yeah.
Because you seem to have similar ideas about the phone, like you want to be present,
Mhm.
but you also want to show
Yeah.
them work.
I agree. 1,000, like right now I'm sitting here obviously with my 5-month-old doesn't know a difference, but my 2-year-old, he wants to sit here and type the keyboards. And it's like, this is mommy's focus time. But I think it's just to be intentional about your time with them. And when you are present with them, be truly present. Don't be half in, half out, one foot out the door, one foot in the door. Like, oh yeah, we're sitting here playing on the ground, but I'm on my phone scrolling social
I'm
media.
actually
That's
not.
right. Or you're researching or whatever, but like you do have, and like something that you said earlier, I'd love to touch on. You're like, I actually didn't have boundaries for myself before I became a mom. And I think boundaries, like motherhood almost forces you into implementing boundaries if you don't already have them. I'm learning the same thing in my motherhood journey. Like you truly have to set boundaries. Like if my best friend's calling right now, but I'm in the middle of working or changing a poopy diaper, like I'll call you back. I'm not, that's just my example. But like I think in motherhood, you truly
I'm
have
actually
to
so.
what was that?
Like, but we have such a hard time saying the same thing to our kids. Like, yeah, our friend will be like, I can't talk right now, I'm busy. But when it's your kid, I don't know. That's
But I
something I
think
still
it's also teaching healthy boundaries for them to have for themselves. Like if they don't want to play with somebody, they don't have to. They can just say kindly, I don't want to play right now. I want to play by myself.
yeah.
So I think it's just part of what works best for your family. I think, like I said, we're very intentional about putting our phones in the RO box when we get home from work. So and like if I have to pull it out to pull up a recipe, okay. But like it's not, like I said, we're just intentional with our present time. And then when it's our work time, or yes, we live in a world where we rely on technology. That's just, there's no way around that.
Yeah.
So like to integrate it into your life where how you see fit and appropriate, and to set clear and healthy boundaries around the phone and around like, or, your technology devices and your kids. And I think
Yeah.
that's just part of life. And like I said, boundaries apply to all things life, right? Not just one
Right.
particular, and they can shift. Boundaries are not meant to be like rules, like hard
That's
rules in the
what me, but
sand.
not type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. It is hard though. It is so hard with
it is.
the way
Like my
things.
husband, he's wildland firefighter. He's gone right now. So FaceTime is something we rely on to see him every single day. So my son is getting plenty of screen time. It might not be in the form of like shows, but it's
We
it's
do.
definitely there. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just different for every family, and what is in alignment with your values and what works for your family is my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just was curious how you do it because yeah, that's a hard one for me. I feel extreme guilt actually when I'm working and it's on with technology actually for some reason. So
Mm.
I think it's because I was so deep rooted in the like I don't want even because it's so hard to avoid now almost the technology. I actually want to delay it as much as possible. And so yeah, it's been just a really hard thing for me as I'm like I don't know. It's like I don't feel guilty when I'm like making fire cider in my kitchen with him, obviously, and that's work. Or like when I'm distracted reading a recipe or reading a real book. But you put me in front of my computer and I'm not present, even if I played with him all morning, I like start to feel like weird guilt. And so it's interesting how
But
that
like you
evolves.
said, that mom guilt, it's going to be hard to break. But I'm with you in helping moms run away from it as fast as we possibly can. Aubrey,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for this conversation. I'm so grateful for you. And if there's a special place that people can find you or your workshops or a website, I know you said you were kind of working on that. Do you have any of that the listeners could maybe go check out if they're interested?
So definitely follow me on Instagram because so right now the business or what I'm starting is so I'm actually gonna start selling my fire cider that I make. So fire cider and it's great for kids. My 2-year-old literally drinks it with orange juice every morning. He never gets sick. Um, and then other like teas for like when kids get sick and things like that. So incorporating herbalism and things in your house. It's called Little House of Herbs. I'm working on it's currently only in person. So if you live locally in Indiana, come find me. But you can follow me on Instagram, and as soon as I get a website up and running and start expanding to sell it like e-commerce, then you'll be the first to know. But my Instagram is just Aubri G _, so AUBRI G _. And you'll see lots of cute videos of my goats and all of our farm and garden adventures. It's a crazy life, very fun over here. We're always doing new things, so there will definitely be more workshops and things in the future, although I don't know if I'll do any virtual workshops.
Okay. Never say never.
Yeah, we don't know. Probably since I said it, I probably will.
Right. Well, I will be sure to include that in the show notes. Aubrey, thank you so much for this conversation. I truly enjoyed it.
Me too.
Thank you for joining me and listening to the Kindred Journey podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please consider taking the time to rate and review the podcast and share this episode with family and friends who you think might enjoy it. Your positive feedback helps me reach more courageous women like you. This is my passion project, so without you, I wouldn't be here doing this, and I deeply appreciate your support. Until next time.